Good morning, guys. This is the Healing Trail podcast. I am Frank Hernandez, and this is where we hike, tell our stories, and hope to heal together. Today we are at Deem Hills Recreation Center, and I have a very special guest here, Mrs. Regina Raybourn. Am I
Yes,
saying that correctly?
absolutely.
Okay, and I'm very excited about this trail hike today, guys, because Regina actually has a really interesting story. Regina, I'll let her tell you a little bit about her in a minute, but um, uh, getting to hear her story and kind of her perspective on things is an exciting part for me to hear. And we're going to do this on our Saturday morning. So come hike with us, hang out with us, and get to hear this amazing person speak. Ready, Regina?
I'm ready.
Okay. So let's start off, I guess. Regina, do you want to introduce yourself? Kind of tell us who you are, what you do, what your credentials are, and all
Oh,
that.
okay. I'm Regina Raybourn. I am an addiction therapist. My actual credentialing is LAAC now, and I have my master's in science. I'm also a recovered addict. I am recovered from cocaine and methamphetamine. And as of December 20th of 2024, that was 20 years sobriety. Woohoo!
Wow, celebration.
Yeah.
Say that again, as of when?
As of December 20th, 2024.
So that was recently.
Yeah.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. Oh, I just said 20 years sobriety. It's actually 24 years sobriety.
24 years sobriety.
Yes.
Nice. So,
Good morning.
good morning, guys. How's it going? Good. How are you? Just enjoying this beautiful weather, eh?
Lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that, Regina.
Yes.
What's the secret? What's your secret, do you think, in sobriety?
Well, a lot of the secret, I try to teach my clients in today's time, of course, but we have to change our perspective. We have to change our outlook on life. Forgive me for my breathing, Frank. I just got over a cold. I want to announce that to your people too. If we don't turn things around in the way we look at things, like for example, taking a walk is fun for me now over going and getting high. We have to be able to view things in a different light. We have to have a different attitude about what fun is. We have to understand that we're not going to be able to get our dopamine levels up to the way it was, like, for example, when we were on meth. Because first off, it's unnatural. It's off the charts. There's a video out there for that shows the measurements on it. And it's not obtainable. But what is obtainable is to get your direction recentered and your focus recentered. And once you get that recentered and you start changing your perspective and you start looking at the things that you never noticed before, maybe you didn't notice while you were high, I should say, and the beautiful grass, the mountains, the sun. Start getting in some fresh air, learning that there's more to life than just sitting around getting high. And I know that's kind of a 101, but
Right.
it is part of the basics, I think, because I remember when I first got sober, I couldn't figure out what to do with myself, I didn't, because I automatically would go and fill my pipe up with meth and smoke it.
Yeah.
So my parents come out here to Arizona and they take me back to Kentucky. And all of a sudden I'm surrounded by people wanting to take me to church and wanting me to go places with them, want me to do things with them. And my mind is like, no, I can't do this.
Right.
And
Can't go to church. Can't go to.
yeah.
Didn't want to do things normal, like what we thought normal people would
Right.
do.
What we consider normal, right?
Okay.
Because first off, I had scars all over my face, and I had a mole on the left side of my cheek here at one point. And during my time of meth, I tweaked
Yeah.
and I picked it off my face.
As it does. Morning, guys.
Good
How are you
morning.
guys?
And when I had done that, I had, that, and then plus all the other places on my face, my arms, my legs. I didn't want people in church to see me.
Yeah. So that embarrassment?
The embarrassment, the shame.
Yeah.
I walked like this, Frank. I had my head down all the time. I didn't want anyone to see me. I definitely didn't want to look at myself.
Yeah.
So I know I started off with your perspective of getting out and enjoying life again, but maybe I need to back up a little bit further on that and just say, maybe learn that self-care, taking the showers, fixing your hair, brushing it, if you're a guy, fixing your beard, keeping it trimmed, brushing your teeth, washing your face, applying lotions where you haven't maybe applied lotions in years, in some cases, right?
Right.
I get to see a lot of different people come in and out of my office and in the clinic that I work at and, get same drug, different appearance. Some picked at their skin, some didn't. Some
Yeah.
experienced deep trauma, some didn't. So one girl right now, she has psoriasis all over her body. She talks about how she used to be so beautiful. And our perspective of ourselves is now negative.
Right.
I used to be beautiful. I used to be this. I used to be that. And I did that too. I used to be a model. I used to be an ice skater. And now here I am all tweaked out and nasty. It's the way I viewed myself at that time.
Yeah. You certainly have a lot of insight. Where does your insight come from? So someone who's hearing this, they might hear you speak and they might be encouraged, and they might do well. And I think that's an amazing, beautiful thing. But the person who's struggling to understand, like, how do you get from such a dark place to the light that you have now? How are you able to? Where did that come from? What is your insight, your wisdom, your experience come from?
Well, mine first off starts off, good morning. Mine first off starts off with my higher power, my God. I know the 12 steps talks about it a lot. And even if you don't like the 12 steps, I hear that so much. I don't understand it. I don't get why we have to do this. But it helps you to get in touch with your higher power. And that's where mine starts. My other insight comes from experience. My other insight comes from years of just repairing myself. My other insight comes from, when we go to school for this, right, we get all this, the learning in the books, right? And what I did was I took a lot of that I was given in my bachelor's and my master's programs, and I took it and I applied it to my personal journey to see, did these people who are writing these books, did they really know what they're talking about?
Yeah.
And they did, apparently. There is a lot to it, like with, let me go back a little bit and just say that, the journey has to begin up here, and then it moves to in here, to where I want this, I desire this, I need this sobriety. Because a lot of us up here, because of court, because of my mom, because of my kids, because of my dad, because of whoever, we started up here. But we have to want it in here for us. Why do I want sobriety? A lot of people will say, my external motivating factor is my children, right?
Yeah.
But when I talk about the internal motivating factor, people are like, I'm not quite sure. I'm like, well, do you want this? And they'll go, well, I guess I do.
Yeah.
But you have to want it in here. I tell all my clients this, you have to want it in here. Because if you don't desire it in here, in this inner part of you, then we won't stay sober, because we can't stay sober for others. We have to stay sober for us. Does it make sense?
Yeah. So I'm hearing you speak, and I often relate to what you're saying as willingness.
Very much so, willingness.
Because you have so much experience just in life, your ministry with God and all the stuff you do at church, and now your professional aspect of your life, and you have your home life. How does one develop willingness when willingness is not there?
Well, I don't think it's something that can be instant in this fast food world, right? We have to kind of examine ourselves if we can. If we have God as our first and foremost, maybe we can go to God and talk to Him, and that can help. If we're not sure who our higher power is, we're still in question, then in order to develop that willingness, you have to examine your life and look at yourself for a minute. Maybe literally look in the mirror and tell yourself who you see.
Ah, look in the mirror. Wow.
The mirror project is a very big thing that I do.
The mi- You know, up until like recent, this is in the time span of mankind being alive on the earth, being able to, specifically with the development of the mirror, right? The engineering and manufacturing of the physical mirror that we all have in our bathrooms.
Right.
Before that, we were only really able to see our reflection in the water.
Right. Absolutely.
Since the invention of the mirror, there's been some studies done that suggest that we've become so obsessed with, in some very unhealthy ways, who we see in the mirror. And as a result, some people have been able to sort of critique themselves.
Yes.
Also at the same time,
Yes.
been able to see the areas where they can improve on.
Right. And you know, I think when people do that, I thought that went on around. I'm sorry. Maybe we should.
What should we do?
I think we're going to turn around.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It'll be all right.
Didn't mean
Should we
to.
turn around? Is there a trail over there?
I thought there was. I apologize for interrupting like that, but I'm like, where are we headed?
This is what it's all about, Regina.
Yeah, it is.
We're gonna get lost sometimes, but
I love this.
we're gonna find our way.
We'll wait for these people and then we'll see where they go.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. You know, when we did only have the water as our reflection, it kind of gives a distorted view. I mean, think about it. Go to any lake. Go somewhere and look into the water, see your reflection. Just kind of like cameras nowadays. You know, we use filters. We cover up the true self. You know, we don't expose who we really are. And that's a lot of our problem today because we don't want to expose who we are. We don't want to get vulnerable. And when we look into the mirror, an actual mirror, we're exposing ourselves. We're seeing ourselves for who we really are. Like in my case, just using only my example, I looked in the mirror and I saw these sores and I saw the nastiness. That's how I described it, you know.
Yeah.
So we saw this nastiness on my face and that was my view of myself. So I had to cover it up. I had to cover it up with something. I had to hide in the dark. And that's what we do. We kind of, you know, I do that physical, we withdraw and we kind of shun ourselves. We put our head down.
Whimper.
Yeah.
Sort of whimper away.
Sort of whimper away.
Withdraw, recede.
Isolate. And then we start pulling away from the world because we don't want to see ourselves in that true reflection of who we really are. And once we can face that, we can be like, all right, and get to that state of acceptance. Here's who I am and here's who I want to be. You know, I don't want to be just a reflection in the water. I want to be the reflection in the mirror. You know, I want to see myself clearly and I want others to see me. I want to let the world know me. And that's a scary place to be, that vulnerability. We talk about it all the time in recovery, you know. People get scared of that. They don't know how to be vulnerable anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you think, Regina, or what are your thoughts on you brought up an interesting point about the filter, right? So I'm taking a picture with my phone, and one of the first. So from your perspective, can you describe the process? But let me lay out a little platform for us real quick.
Okay.
I take my phone, I take a picture, and there's something that happens in my mind, and then I say, okay, let's apply a filter.
Yeah.
Like, can you describe sort of the psychology behind that?
The psychology behind the filter itself?
The psychology behind pre-filter application, the idea to apply the filter, and then the results of applying the filter and what it means.
So beginning, middle, and end
Yeah,
of
what
that.
does it mean to our
You
mind?
want to follow them?
Yeah, let's follow
Okay.
these guys.
All right. Get back on our track, huh? Okay, so the beginning, you know, we have a full filter in the world of recovery. What do we call that? We call that our mask, right? And we paint that mask to whatever we want the world to see. And what that filter process looks like is, you know, maybe you're seeing me smiling all the time. Like, how are you doing today? I'm doing good.
Yeah.
You know, how you feeling? I feel pretty good. Oh, you look nice today, Regina. Yeah, thank you. I'm feeling good about myself.
Right.
And that's a load of baloney,
Okay.
right? So that's that first part. Or that's kind of leading into the second part, because the first part is just more covering it up. It's more developing our mask and painting our mask and designing that mask as to what it's going to look like for us. How are we going to hide ourselves and not be vulnerable and not reveal our true selves?
Right.
So the second part
Right.
kind of goes into that answering the questions, because now we're not isolated. Maybe our family's pulled us out a little bit, or our friend or our husband or our wife or whoever. And we're coming out of that a little bit. So instead of wearing a full mask, we put that filter on, like what the phone does for us,
Yeah.
what our cameras do. You know, you can see exactly who I am, but I'm going to cover it up. I'm going to cover up my flaws. I'm going to talk about my flaws. I'm going to hold this stuff inside, because when we don't talk about it, we don't reveal it, we don't expose ourselves. So how are you doing? Oh, we got our mask on. Doing okay, I'm doing good. You know, I'm kind of coming out of my isolation, so that's great. And we give that view of ourselves, like in a literal sense, we're like stepping, we're stepping. You know, we're stepping toward showing people that we're okay, instead of showing ourselves that we're okay. And so we might pull the mask off, but then we do put on a filter. That's that second part. When you put on that filter, that's the one that you take the picture of yourself and then you go into it and you edit it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I cover up that flaw on my nose. I make my lips look a little bit redder. I make my eyes look a little bit bigger. You know, and we give that fake smile, whatever that consists of. How are you doing today, Regina? I'm doing great. I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
And maybe you are feeling good because you've been eating, you're gaining a little bit of weight or whatever that means. And maybe you are feeling a little bit good, right? So you're able to do that. So people that haven't had a lot of experience in recovery, they don't know that you still haven't exposed yourself yet. And it takes you going in front of that mirror, not in front of the water to see the distorted version of yourself,
Yeah.
but to stand in front of the mirror and go, oh my gosh, this is who I am. Do I like this person? Not so much. What do I see in this person? Now let's start addressing this. How you doing today, Regina? I'm not doing so good. I looked at myself in the mirror today and I see those scars, and it really made me sad.
Yes.
You know, and you develop it. I think it's an over time. And when I say time, I don't mean it has to be years, but I mean maybe a couple weeks, maybe a couple months, whatever that means. But I think it takes that time to where you finally sit down and you're like, you know, I'm so ashamed of myself for doing what I did to my family. I'm so ashamed of myself for what I did to myself. But you know what? That shame's going to stay back there, and I'm going to face this, I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to start healing. And then we quit covering ourselves up with the filter. We're like, take me or leave me.
Yeah.
We kind of get that attitude as we recover and grow, you know. And it took me a while, because I came in with so much guilt, so much shame from the crime that I did in my time of use, from the use, of course, from neglecting my kids, from all the damage I caused to my family. Like, I ruined them.
So you talk about how someone would put on a mask because they don't want to show their flaws.
Right.
I think that's so true. What are your thoughts on why? The idea is that we learn things from places, right?
Right.
We are exposed to environment, and through that environment, that we then learn these characteristic traits, which then become part of our personality. Where do you think we learn the habit or the behavior to hide our flaws?
Where do you think we learn the habit or the behavior to those higher flaws?
To hide our flaws.
Oh, to hide our flaws.
The action or the behavior of hiding the flaws.
I think it, and I'm going to use the word kinda, stems from in our use, because that's what we do. Nobody gets to see us for who we truly are when we're in our use. And the reason why they don't is because we hide from them. We don't go visit them. We do things in the dark. Now, I'm relating to my own journey right now, because I know that since my time of use and today's time of use is a whole two different worlds, it seems like. But we go away from the world that we exist in today. Like, you would have never caught me standing here with someone talking to him on camera, you know, in a million years of my use.
Yeah.
There was no way I was going to let you put me on camera in a million years in my use.
Yeah.
Because I always felt like I was hiding from something, from the law, from my family, from people that wanted me better. I definitely wasn't going to go around them. And I think that's what we do. We get so used to it. And it becomes a part of how we live. And it takes, what, 22 days to develop a habit? 22 days to break a habit? And when you start using, think how long you use. Think of all the stuff that you build up around you in that use. And it develops this hard, almost unbreakable shell around you. It almost petrifies around us.
Yeah.
To where little by little we have to, I'm going to reference Shrek, peeling the onion.
Yeah.
You have to kind of break the shell, break each layer, because you can't just hit it with a hammer and it all go away. You have to chisel at it, get one little part at a time, because we're scared. I know I was. I know a lot of my clients are. I can't speak for the whole world, but I know that I was scared to, I committed crimes. Yes, I went to jail. Yes, I smoked meth. Yes, I did things that I maybe normally would have never done. Well, not maybe, I would have never normally done.
Yeah.
If I wasn't in my use. And to be able to face people that don't understand that journey, that don't understand addiction, or maybe their idea of addiction is, I used to drink beer all the time and I quit after 2 months, Maybe they don't understand. And we can't open up to these people that don't understand. So we go to treatment. And with treatment comes chaos.
Wow, that's true.
And you have a lot of chaos going on around you. So how am I going to sit here and open up myself? That's why therapy is so important. Get that one-on-one time. Hopefully that therapist can help you to open up a little bit more in the middle of the chaos and learn to focus on you. Quit focusing on everything going on around you, like we used to do in our youth. We focused on everything around us as we were high, as we were numbing, as we were not facing things, right?
Yeah.
And then we get into treatment and all the chaos, all of a sudden we're paying attention to it because we don't have to hide from it. So now we get involved in it. We pay attention to it. So what we have to do to peel these layers away, to remove the filter, is to really start focusing on self. And going back to what I originally said was looking in the mirror and saying, who are you seeing right now? Who do you want to be? And let the world see this. It's okay. Because you know what? If they're going to judge me, that's on them. That's not on me. That's their character defect. That's not mine. I'm going to be honest in my recovery.
Regina, I'm hearing you speak right now. You and I have known each other for what, about a year?
Mm-hmm.
Less?
A little bit over, I think.
Okay. And I've recovered. I'm thriving now. I was a previous addict in my past life, and you brought up such an amazing point I've never previously considered prior to talking with you. And the point you made was, I asked you a question. Where do you think the behavior of hiding the flaws comes from? And you said, well, it's a learned behavior when you're in your addiction because you then want to hide and get away from everybody.
Right.
And I'm thinking, like, I always wonder, like, man, pre-addiction, let me get this out of your face. Pre-addiction, there was no shame.
Right.
There was narcissism. There was
Yes.
prideful ignorance. There was a sort of machismo attitude.
Yeah.
There was undeniable confidence, even if I was wrong.
Absolutely.
But hearing you speak, pre-addiction, there was no shame.
Right.
And I'm like, holy cow, I developed the behavior of shame in my addiction.
Yes.
To push away so I can continue my use.
Yes.
Prior to addiction, shame was non-existent
For you.
for me.
Right.
Holy fucking cow. So being in my addiction taught me the value of shame,
Yes,
having
absolutely.
shame.
Absolutely.
And then now I navigate through this world in a very beautiful way with the understanding of shame.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
I love that could do that for you. That makes me so happy.
I've never thought about that before.
Excuse me. I love that for you.
Which makes me delegate and appropriate value to shame.
It absolutely does.
Oh my God.
Now take that. Now that was identifying with yourself. That identifies with a lot of people who are in addiction. But also there's
Because we
people,
think of shame as a bad thing.
yes, absolutely. Now, but there's also the other side too. And, you know, the people that have been molested, right? The people that have done things before their addiction to where they don't carry any guilt because they don't know, but they carry that shame. So they start using in order to be able to either A, continue in what they're doing, or to be able to hide behind what they've been doing. So either way, whether you've already got some stuff that you've got some shame about, you know, I have one lady that you know, she prostituted for a long time, and honestly, she didn't present a lot of shame until she got deep into her addiction. And then she showed that because of the many men that she slept with during her addiction was where really the shame developed. So we may have some shame in some cases prior to our addiction, and that's a whole different group of people. But with you, with me, I didn't have that shame before.
Yes.
I developed it during my addiction. But even if you had it before, you know, maybe it would have been a small layer. But now you're in your addiction and you add to it. So now you go ahead and you develop more within your addiction. And that's why that shell gets so hard around us. We're scared to be vulnerable. It goes back to that. We don't want to be vulnerable. I was a hooker. I was this. I was that. You know, I did this. I did that. And we clam up and we're like, it doesn't matter if you have scars or not. We got all kinds of scars on the inside.
Yeah.
And even though I can't see your scars on the inside, we find a way to hide it. You know, we hold ourselves. We keep our heads down. We don't talk. We don't look people in the eyes. But nobody cared in that world. And that was an easier world to live in than the world where people care. Because people that care, they want to see you.
Yeah.
And we don't want to show that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
And that's my story without even telling my story. Because that's where I was.
Yeah.
You know?
So,
Yes.
how do you feel about the idea of the introduction of telling your story?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. You
I don't
sure?
hide anymore from it.
Okay. I didn't think you did. I see you as a person that's totally transformed, confident, and uses everything you've had for strengths. I think
Yes.
that's exactly what we're not going to get any less from you except for strength.
Okay.
So I'm all ears, and I know that. So my idea for this podcast, Regina, is so let me tell you. Let me, and I'll do like an introductory video of this, explaining what this is. But my goal for this podcast is to get people's stories, and through those stories being told, to reach people. And if we can just help one person
Yeah.
hear one bit of information that will transform their life,
Absolutely.
then we are successful.
Excuse
So
me.
through your story, hopefully the hopes are that it'll reach somebody who's going through what you've been through and be able to help them.
I hope so. Well, really to start, I wasn't raised in a hard life by no means. So my drug addiction didn't lead into that because of that. My drug addiction was based on really started with a ex-husband of mine who wanted me to use coke. I wouldn't, but he made it look so easy. And then by the time we had separated, I had I'll just be very vague about it because I had a relative introduce me to it.
Yeah.
And I started using coke. And I'll jump around a little bit on it and lead into the actual story a little bit, but coke it just almost instant wasn't enough for me. I started doing acid on weekends, doing coke as often as I could, but not to the point where I wasn't, you know, I love the words functioning.
Yeah.
I was functioning.
Learn to function.
Learning to function.
Yeah.
Then, long story short, I was introduced to cocaine in Kentucky, and then I came out here to Arizona, and I called up an old friend of mine, and I said, "Hey, you got any coke? You know, I have some people with me, and we would like to get high." And she goes, "I don't have any coke, but I have some meth."
Yeah.
I'm like, "What's that?" And she introduced me to that. Introduced me to meth. Long story short, I took meth back home, was doing coke, meth, and acid, and I wanted continuous access to meth because in my area in Kentucky at that time, meth wasn't rapid there, it was rapid here.
Yeah.
So I moved back out here, and I've lived here as a little girl and went to school out here, and I've always thought of Arizona as my home, but I thought, why not go out there and do some meth, you know?
Yeah.
I heard a lot of people along the way to the move. I was using meth while I was working in a nursing home. A lot of the people I was working with at that time, people we have to remember, this was in the 80s. This was not any time recent. But I was going to work, getting high. We took care of the clients. I don't have any guilt there at all because we did. We took care of the patients very well. We got a lot of stuff done. We were speeded all the time. One thing led to another. Next thing you know, I'm meeting this guy who was because back in my day, you had your drug dealers, you know? So I met one of the main drug dealers of that time. And
Did you think you made it big time?
I did.
Yeah.
When I met him, I was like, holy cow, here I am.
Yeah.
And
I arrived.
I have arrived. That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
You described that well. Yes, I did. I was like, yay. He ended up being the father of one of my children. He's a great dad today.
Amen.
And recovered today.
Amen. Sing praise, sing praise.
Absolutely. You know, it's awesome. But he wasn't so great back then, but I thought he was, of course. I just did step by step by step. Meeting drug dealer, bigger drug dealer, getting involved in, a lot of bikers were responsible for the meth distribution back then. And I got involved in different bike scenes. And back then in my day, we did the east side and the west side. Like if you were on the east side, you had the drugs on the east side. If you were on the west side, you had the drugs on the west side.
Yeah.
And the rules were a little bit different back then, but you had to stay strict on it.
Yep.
You couldn't go to the east side and get your drugs back then. You had to stay on the west side if you're, had your dealer. I ended up in a very powerful circle to where I was given access to both east and west side.
Yep.
I traveled this whole city distributing and running drugs. Met people that actually took smuggling drugs to an extent. One gentleman who is now deceased, but he did get saved and led his life for the Lord and give back before he passed away from cancer.
Praise Jesus.
I want to give his praise report first. But he used to surgically open up a piece of his skin and sell his drugs into his skin.
Yeah.
Like it just was so extreme in my time. I'm not saying that it's better or worse today. I'm just saying it's what my time was like. Did a lot of crime, robbed, stole, got high a lot. There was a lot of killing back in my time. I actually went and interviewed many people from my past when I first moved back out here. And they gave me permission to write the book that I have already written. I just haven't published it.
Wow. Can we get a title? Could we get or is it, we're not holding out?
We're holding out on the title.
Okay, good.
But you will have it. You will have it here soon.
I want a signed copy.
You will get a signed copy.
I want a photographed signed copy.
You will get a photographed signed copy.
Yeah, heck yeah.
So in the book, it talks about the dangerous areas that I stepped into. A lot of the guys that I were around were killers, and you had to stay high in order to be able to deal with what you dealt with in that time.
Yeah.
I would go, even to this day, I still just kind of have to pray every time I pass them. If I see an empty apartment complex, it triggers me back to that time sometimes. Yes, we can trigger after 24 years of sobriety. Doesn't mean I have to use, it just means I got triggered.
Right.
But one of the things about my story was we had, maybe I think they still have them today, but we had soldiers. We were the ones that walked like what we're doing right now. Maybe at night we'd be walking the neighborhoods and watching people and just preparing to, either A, rob them, or maybe some of these fine houses had, some of our biggest dealers in them, and we were protecting them. They're buried. So that's the kind of world I was in. It was beyond dark. There was a lot of heroin, a lot of meth, a lot of cocaine at that time. And, we really, I think not just the drug addiction, but what we did back then absolutely just messed with our heads.
Absolutely.
It made a lot of us powerful, and I have watched as one friend has relapsed over and over, who is now sober, praise Jesus.
Amen.
But I've watched as, well, maybe a couple friends, as they kept relapsing over and over. And I did an interview with my friend, one of my friends, as I was writing my book. And she said the thing about me from back in that time was, she goes, I didn't know if you were going to kill me, if you were going to love me. She goes, I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
And I can remember fighting people for no reason, just because they would say my dealer's name. I can remember, just like, hey, come on guys, we're going to set this up and let's go rob this person. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. And meth along the way. We had
Fueled all of it.
Fueled it all. We had, it may sound like an over exaggeration, but we had tons of meth, and we were just breaking it up and sealing it and dealing it, and just, it was just rapid. We had houses, we owned businesses, we did all these things, and DEA agents were even involved in our world. And it was really messed up. So that messes with your head. You got meth, and then all this stuff going on. And I didn't know, my family didn't know if I was ever going to be normal again.
What was your reality at that point? Like, if you were to put a GPS location on reality versus the world you were in.
Oh,
if you
my
were
gosh.
Regina, if you were tasked with the job of putting a GPS location on real reality.
Real reality?
In comparison to the world that you thought the world you were in, where would that GPS location be put?
Oh my gosh, real reality was so far away. I don't know where I could have put it.
Yeah.
It would have been way out somewhere in the middle of the desert that we used to have out here.
Yeah. Trying to make sure I get the sun out of your face.
Yeah, thank you. It was so far away. The world I was living in was real, but just that, let's do this, that normal world, GPS, pin,
Yeah.
far, 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 far away.
Could you see it?
No, not at that time.
No.
I was too involved in the crime. I was too involved in the drugs. I was too involved, not just from my use, but distributing. I had thousands and thousands of dollars in my pocket at one time, all the time.
Living in that world, did you ever think, like, I wonder what normal people do?
No.
No.
Not at that time. No.
Never crossed your mind?
No.
No.
Because normal.
What normal is, right? Whatever your idea of normal is subjective, obviously, but people who get up, eat breakfast with their families, go work a job, take their kids to soccer practice, come home, go to school, do a recital every now and then.
No.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't even a thought that crossed my mind. I even had, when it first started, I had one child. And even when I had two kids, still reality, my kids were all over there safe out of that world. So I was able to surround myself with that darkness that I was in and live my life.
Yeah,
Let me do that.
Survival.
Survived. I lived a big world at that time. It was hard to tap me down once I got sober too, because I was like, do you know who you're talking to? I fluffed up my feathers all the time. And so, at that time, I don't think I could have gone into treatment, because the first time someone would have told me that you have to get up at 6 a.m., I'd be like, huh, really?
Yeah.
And I had that attitude. I had that personality. I had that, because I couldn't blink back then. I couldn't turn left or right. I had to stay focused. I had to do my job. I had to be that soldier, at that time. And I had meth on top of it. I was contributing to it. I had deep hallucinations of the meth of that time. It was hardcore world at that time. We had a situation where I was taken for sex trafficking. One of the guy that actually took me, he had worked his way into that world, and he had decided to do this plan, to get together this plan of getting me away from my security.
Right.
There's details of it in the book, but he, during the time while he was taking me, I hadn't been drugged or anything at this point, but he had told me he was going to settle debts with my people, and I was one of the people that you answered to. He didn't like answering to a woman, for one. And we got into his limo, and I had to, the rule was you put your guns down. You know, you can't, you know, that was supposed to be that kind of thing. There was, back then, there was actually honor in that world. And if you broke it, you got hurt back then. It was just constant violence on top of meth, on top of violence, on top of meth. And that's how one of my friends described it. He was like, it was just constant violence. Think of a death that happened between the 80s and 90s. Our people were there.
Yeah.
When I was being taken for sex trafficking, and I'll tell this portion of the story, and the rest of it's in the book, but we pulled up to a house of a gentleman, not a gentleman, well, a guy. I still correct myself on this because I don't even know how to, I've been processing it, I've gotten treatment for it, and I see a therapist.
Yeah.
But the guy had been molesting his nieces and nephews. It was reported. And so they put a bullet in him that night, and they put his body in the limo I was in.
Yeah.
And they took him out to the desert and dropped him off. At that time, I didn't know what was going on. I knew something was going on because I lived in that world. I knew something was happening. And I even thought that someone had gotten killed, but I couldn't tell where I was at. And the windows were so dark, and I was just like, and I could see people. And also during that time, I found out during one of my interviews that another friend of mine, his friend went to go to do a job by himself. He got beat with a baseball bat wrapped up in plastic and taken out to a canal way out past Buckeye area.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's okay that I say that. I did. I went and got permission for all of this. And they found both bodies out there, and they tried to set each other up for the crimes.
Yeah.
But all the people that did all those crimes have all actually served time in prison or are now no longer of this earth. That's the kind of world I lived in.
Cases that can't be opened or are closed or already
Right,
done.
they're done.
Yeah.
So that was the hard thing about me writing my book, is because I wanted to talk about the dark side of it. And I wanted to mention that kind of stuff because when I was taken for sex trafficking, that wasn't a time that I didn't want to be using. But yeah, there was a lot of darkness to that. And to come out of all that darkness and to come out of drug use and to have been hurt and taken advantage of during the time when I was taken out of the state for sex trafficking, you know, it's a little bit hard to look yourself in the mirror, knowing the things that you contributed to and knowing the things that were done to you. How can I be vulnerable? How can I tell people this is the deep, dark world that I lived in? Because I was so ashamed, you know?
Yeah.
If I can get anything across to people is this, you know, there's always someone out there that's worse off than I could ever think about being, that's experienced things that I could never even fathom. I had a client that had been taken by another group of people for sex trafficking. What she went through was 5 times worse than what I could ever have imagined in my life.
Yeah.
And so we all have our levels of stories. My story to me, deep and dark and ugly. And her story to her, deep and dark and ugly. But me being able to hear hers, I've heard hers way darker than mine because of all the hurt. She went through a lot more abuse than what I went through. So we have a tendency, even in recovery, to put a level on everybody's hurt and pain. You know, yours is worse than mine, so I should be okay. But we can't do that. We have to focus on ourselves. We have to stay focused on what our story is and the damage that our story caused to us and our family and our friends.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Oh, that baby one, let's pet it. I didn't think I would go there in this podcast today.
So there's something interesting that happens when you're out in nature and you're walking and you're talking. You know, you get to really connect with an authentic form of ourselves, and and present uh, the emotion of authenticity. And I think that emotion of authenticity is really what connects us as human beings,
Yeah.
or allows us to be able to begin to connect as human beings. And you know, I'm glad you didn't tell us everything about what's to come ahead, because that's going to be an amazing read.
Yeah.
Your book is going to be amazing.
It's a little bit more detailed.
Yeah. And Regina, this is what makes this so important, is this podcast so important, because somebody will view this, somebody will hear it, and when your book comes out, we're gonna have to get you on again,
Okay.
so that we can promote your book and market it and get it out,
Okay.
and put it in some good people's hands, and maybe even give out some free. I'll buy a bunch.
No, we'll give out some free copies.
I'm gonna buy a bunch, and we're gonna give them out, and we can pass them out to people even on the trail, and just gift them with a book. And this is something I would love to invest my time and money into, if you would allow me.
Absolutely.
Man, this is so good. You've done more than bring insight. You've actually transformed my life, especially with the concept of shame that we talked about earlier.
Yes.
I now view shame in a different view.
That's wonderful. I love that.
And I always knew you had an incredible story, because you help hundreds and thousands of people from mental illness and mental suffering and addiction and substance use. This is just people. This is just if you're listening and here and watching right now, this is just a fraction of what this amazing human being is comprised of. And
Frank.
yeah, and Regina, we're gonna head out in a little bit, but can you tell us a little bit about your charity that you do with your church, and how does God play a part in gluing this all together for you?
Well, the way he has played a part in gluing this all together is I also work with, not as much as I would love to, of course, but I get to work with people that's been sex trafficked, addicted. That's through our ministry. Doug and I, we have a ministry called Rogue Ministries.
Hi, Doug.
Hi, Doug.
I love you.
We absolutely do love him, don't we?
We're gonna get Doug on here.
He's amazing. I apologize for the cough. He and I, actually Doug started the ministry. The Lord talked to him and said, here's what you're going to do. And Doug told me, and I was like, are you sure about that? But so we have this ministry. We work with the homeless veterans, people who are addicted. I personally have a thing that I do that the ministry isn't truly involved in, but that's working with sex trafficking. Through our church, we've been able to reach more people. I'm so sorry, I can feel my cold kicking in from where we're going up this little bit of incline.
We can take a break, or we can go slower.
I know you didn't explain to your people, I just got over a cold.
Guys, Regina, she's out here on pure strength right now, because she was sick. She had a really bad cold, so she's really doing us a favor, and this is why we value this, right? Because
well, you hear the heavy breathing.
she's putting herself second, and she's prioritizing helping others, what Regina always does.
And Frank's done great by keeping me at a slow pace. Thank you. No, our ministry's really done a lot. We work with sex trafficking. We work with homeless. We work with the addicted. We work with homeless veterans. Some of it our church gets involved in. There's a thing called a Night of Hope, not in our city. And that is once a year, usually in February. Sometimes in Tempe, sometimes at Grand Canyon University.
Oh, nice.
But
school.
They educate you on what's going on in our state of Arizona.
Wait, are you doing sex trafficking programs at GCU?
No, I work within them. So
You do?
yeah,
Wow.
you go to these events and they have so much information. I will make sure that by Lord willing, when February comes back around next year, that we have the date and where it's going to be.
Yes.
We had the first event I went to, we had this mother that told her story of her, I want to say 6-year-old daughter here in Glendale, Arizona, that was taken for sex trafficking. And they were still looking for her, and they had a team. They have different teams at work. And some are focused on young kids only. Some are focused on adults only, because you can't take care of everything. So you have to have focus teams.
Right.
And the mother was given a description. She was talking about the situation, where she could be, and just gave this whole story. Well, the next year, by the next event, that little girl had been found.
Amen.
It was all over the news out here in Glendale, by the way.
Yes.
And the funny thing is that little girl was so smart. She told the man, take me to church every Sunday and I won't try to run from you.
Oh,
But he
that breaks my heart.
was able, and he took her to church every Sunday. And he, I could be wrong on the time frame, but I think he had her for close to a year.
The
But
little girl may have been saving the man's life.
that's what I'm thinking too. See, I don't know much about him. They didn't reveal that in the report or anything. We were just celebrating the victory of this little girl being rescued.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have a ministry that works in all those categories, and we do work through our church. And the Lord's just been able to pull all this together for His glory, to be able to reach people. To honestly, how many people have compassion for people who are addicted? And I don't know where my compassion level would be if I hadn't experienced my life the way I did. You know, I would hope I'd be that same person that I am today, but I don't think I would be. And the Lord just really was with me through my whole story, through my whole time of use, through everything. And as a result of my own experiences, He has carried me through schooling, and He's carried me through these hard times with clients, and He's carried me through these things to reach out to people when we go out feed. He's carried me through a lot to be able to reach people within my own understanding of what addiction does to us.
God.
It's been amazing. It's an incredible journey.
Yeah, it's only Saturday, 9:20 a.m.
It's amazing.
It's already been an amazing morning.
It has been. I'm sweating out my cold.
Regina, what would be your going away message to someone viewing this right now? What are your last thoughts?
Boy, that's gonna be a tough one. If you're addicted, let's start there. If you're addicted, please get the help. Know that any shame or embarrassment or any damage that you either know you've caused or you think you've caused, go get the help. Get that clarity. You know, when your mind's clear, you're able to problem solve. It's very one-on-one, very basic, but get help. Turn to God first, and then go get the help.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to turn to God, go get the help. God will come.
Yeah.
If you've never been addicted, and you don't understand it, or if you have a loved one that's been addicted, please know. This is going to be very kindergarten, but you all ready for this? Okay. Had to put my tissue away. 101 of the addicted mind. Here's the sober mind. Here's the addicted mind. The one with the ring on is the addicted mind. The sober mind has never experienced drugs, alcohol, whatever. The sober mind has never experienced trauma. The sober mind has experienced nothing negative. The addictive mind has experienced, obviously, drugs or alcohol, trauma, pain, hurt, whatever that consists of. And here's the deal. You have to keep the sober brain on top of the addictive brain. You want it to cover it and be pushing it down at all times. The addictive brain is always going to fight. I'm 24 years sober. My addictive brain still wants to do this. So you have to keep this one sober. Nature, talking to a friend, therapist, whatever you got to do. But here's the deal with the addicted brain. It knows how to win. It knows the excuses. It has the excuses. It already does. Oh, that sign was too red. That ticked me off. It reminded me of something I have to go use.
Yeah.
And it gets on top of that sober brain. The addictive brain is completely different from anything a sober person has ever experienced. Because if you're sitting in your sober brain and you've not had to experience a lot, you will not understand this one. And that's okay. You don't need to. What you need to do is love them. So that way they can build this one. They can build this one to be stronger and to hold it down. Even if the only way it holds it down right now is because you support them. And I don't mean give them money. I mean support them through treatment, therapy, help in whatever way they need it.
Yeah.
And if you're addicted, just know this brain is fighting hard. And we're always doing this.
Yeah.
Okay? So you make this one stronger. Go hiking, drink your water, eat healthy. All the self-care stuff you hear out there in the world, Google it. What can you do? You can do all these things that I just said and then some. And that sober brain will start pushing down on your addictive brain. But always know it's always there. You got two brains for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Never stop fighting. Never give up. And never allow this one to take over this one. That's what I did.
Guys,
fun.
this is Regina Raybourn, amazing individual, and this is the Healing Trail podcast, and we will definitely have to come back and get some information on her book, guys.
Yes.
Bye.